Well, thank you, Amanda. Happy Friday, everybody. Our April, believe it or not, maybe the weather's getting nicer. Our April Friday focus webinar, and excited to have a few guest speakers here today that I know have some valuable insights on a meaningful topic today. So welcome aboard to our GLS Fitting 5. As a reminder, we always try to find the most timely topics to share practical insights with school leaders and folks we've hired. And we also hope this is a good networking opportunity for those who can join us as well. So Caleb and Brent, thanks for being on today, and excited to hear from you. As a reminder to everybody tuning in, we also post these presentations so that folks can watch them when it works for them on our YouTube channel, where we're starting to get more and more video overviews and insights from presentations like this each month. So our focus today is on the challenge for lots of schools, and probably going to get worse before it gets better. And that's recruiting and retaining quality educators, whether it's support staff, teachers, administrators, certainly a challenge these days. So I invited Caleb from Midland, who will probably provide a further introductions, and Brent Hoesing, our singing superintendent from Lewis Central, on today to try to get some different perspectives from different parts of the state, different school sizes. And I know they're both doing some innovative things on recruiting and retention. I also have a couple slides I'm going to share today as well on some things we're doing to stay relevant in the market as well. So happy to share that. But let's start with Caleb. Caleb, the floor is yours, and excited to hear what you might be able to offer today.
All righty. So a little bit more about myself. I'm Caleb Bonjour. Like Trent said, I'm the superintendent here at Midland Community Schools in the Eastern Iowa. This was year 2 for me. And since kind of diving in, one of our big things that I've been tasked with is, recruiting and retaining teachers. It's been a little bit harder over these last couple of years. This year alone, we've pretty much gone the whole year without a math teacher at our secondary building. We've had to go to online or using an online service and things like that. So we know that it's been a pretty big deal, or a big thing that's been coming down the pike, and something that our board's been, willing to work with me on a little bit so that we can come up with some things. So I put together like a very, very quick and dirty, just some things that popped into my mind when I look at recruiting and retaining teachers. So I'll kind of share my presentation with you. And Brent and I touched base yesterday, so some of this stuff is stuff we talked about, so he'll probably cover it as well. But ultimately, at the end of it, I'll go through it pretty quickly so we can have more discussion and share more ideas at the end, because that's where I feel some of the biggest value is and things like that. So let's see here. All right. Can you guys see my screen that I'm presenting on?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right. So when it comes to recruiting and retention, these are just some of those tips and tricks from, again, non-expert. When I think about recruiting, these are my random thoughts. First and foremost, if you have not utilized Canva in any way, shape, or form, become familiar with it. It's probably one of the easiest tools when it comes to generating marketing materials and things like that. It's very easy to create and then post right to Facebook or social media. And by doing that, like there's templates, you can change the colorways, you can personalize things to your district right away. And anytime you get something out there that's shareable and consumable, I feel like that helps us really recruit staff. Know your district's secret stuff. I go back to, sometimes you got to know what makes you special. And when you know that and you have that rooted, my first couple of years here at Midland, it's been figuring that out, so when we talk about that, we really get into what makes us different from other places. Is it the family atmosphere that we have? Is it the fact that most of our teachers are people that have grown up in the area and all that kind of stuff? So it's what really makes our district special. Know that, and then capitalizing on that when we go to recruit and retain. Telling your story. It helps having a really creative wife as well. With Amanda, she's helped me out with a lot of this, but making sure we're marketing and telling our story as a district too. So we just put up a post for like our elementary school counselor position that we have open. And we had again, created out of Canva. We had kind of our ad page, but then we also had a Why Midland page where we interviewed staff and talked about like, why do they choose here? Why do they stay here? We have some staff members that drive over an hour away every day just to come and work here because they love the atmosphere. And they could have easily gotten jobs at tons of districts closer to where they're from. But they like it here. And so being able to have them tell their story about what makes it special, again, it's putting those pieces of information right in, and then being able to showcase and show the awesome things that our district's doing, our staff are doing, and highlighting our teachers really shows how committed we are to them. And so those types of things, I know when I'm looking for a job or when I've talked to people looking for jobs, our Facebook page or Twitter page and things like that are the places that people go to. So anything we can do to get our story out there is going to help us. Maximize the who you know effect. I've always said, with my dad being in education, knowing people and having a network really, really helps things. It's helped immensely when it's come to trying to fill those hard to fill positions, because somebody always knows somebody else. And there might be a chance that somebody might be unhappy in a job close by or something like that. And if I have a good working relationship with, leaders around the area, they might be able to drop me a line and I can reach out to them through Facebook and really actually put in that effort to recruit them to come here and tell them more about the great things that we're doing here. So, make sure name drop, talk to people. You never know when you're going to be able to recruit somebody because they know somebody else. So really capitalizing on that. Create the environment and crush the elevator speech. So that idea of we're really working to promote the positive environment that we can have. That takes some work. I mean, we're in year 2 of really building up the positivity within our district. Coming off of COVID, that's been a little bit harder to do at times. But that also means that, we have to make some of the tough decisions that may create additional vacancies. If we have some people on staff and stuff that we need to, look to, coach up or coach out and things like that. We have to take care of that environment first. And then we also have to have that elevator speech ready to go. So what makes this place special? Why are we working towards the things we are doing, and let our actions continue to speak louder than our words? But the words will definitely help when we do that. Know who you're recruiting. This has been one of the biggest things that I've tried to talk with our board about is, I used to say kids are kids. I used to think that like a graduate from college is a graduate from college. New teachers are new teachers, but that's completely changed. We used to get 30, 40 applicants for an elementary position. Now we're lucky if we get 5. So we really have to know what the needs of our applicants are to be able to ensure that when we want to go close the deal, we can. So, is it money that's going to motivate them? Is it housing? In our area, housing is one of the hardest things to find. So I need to keep a Rolodex of, some landlords and things like that may have vacancies coming up that we can reach out to. Is it that they want a workout plan or facility? Insurance being a big thing. Is it to get closer to family, spouse, significant other? I always like the close to metro areas. And I feel like that's where you can really get into how you create and drive that message. So, people will sit there and say like, we're very rural, but I can also sit there and say, yeah, but we're right in the middle of 3 big metro areas. We have Dubuque, Cedar Rapids, and Davenport. Granted, we're a half hour to 40 minutes from each of those, but we're in the middle of all 3. So anybody that wants to be close to a metro, we're within driving range. And it's all about how we spin that. Continuing ed, if that's really important to people, what can you do to structure offerings to get them to get additional certificates or degrees? 4-day week, things like that some districts are doing. So always know like what are your applicants actually going to be looking for. Be creative. And this is where, thinking outside the box to address some of those needs is really important. You may have to change that paradigm. I really loved, and I hope Brent I'll let him go a little more in depth on this, but we talked about it yesterday of that idea of, we used to have to do, or we have to do XYZ to get teachers to come, and changing that to like, we get to do XYZ. Like we get to change the narrative of the way that we're recruiting and getting people to come now. It is something pretty positive. And then, going the wrong way. Rock the honeymoon, I feel like is the other big thing. So when we get those people to come in and be a part of our district, making sure that we have a strong onboarding process. That's something that, over the last couple of years, I've realized we don't have a super strong onboarding process. And the better we can tune that up and really get that defined. So we're ready to rock and roll. Those are some things that larger districts tend to have a little bit more in check. And I'm hoping that we can kind of take that from those districts and emulate and make sure that we have here as well, because if we can rock that honeymoon that initial year, the odds of them staying go up a lot higher. And then when it comes to, retaining those staff or retention, kind of think about like a retaining wall. It's all about keeping them from leaving, right? Like making sure that nothing's going to get through and they're not going to bust down the wall. And really, it's just doing everything that we just talked about. It's all those things that we would do to recruit and bring staff to the district. We have to do for the staff that are part of the district. We can't just, wine and dine them to get them here. And then like, okay, now you're here. That's great. We have to continue to make sure that we're taking care of their needs. We've done that in a variety of ways that, I can touch on later when we get into a little bit more of the discussion, but, looking at what insurance needs do they have? If we have people coming to us, we offer 6 different plans, which is more than a lot of districts would offer, but that's because that's what our staff wanted. We're also looking at ways that we can add in like mental health services or fertility services and things like that may not be included in typical insurance plans, but that's something that our staff is asking for. Best example that I can give is like last year, our association, and we had teachers asking about, we know to get people to come and stay, we want them to build families. So the faster they build families in our district, they tend to stay longer. But if they come in and only get 10 days, of sick leave right out of the gate or 15 days sick leave, it's really hard for them to family plan and things like that. And so what we did is any new staff member to the district starts with 20 days. And so right away, they're going to start with enough days that if they were to get pregnant or would want to adopt or have a child, they'd be able to do that and be able to take some time within that first year, even without it drastically affecting their income and stuff too. So it's, again, listening to those needs. And those are some of the small things we can do to ensure that we recruit and retain high quality staff. All right. I'll stop sharing now.
That's great, and appreciate the innovations and the few of the thoughts on papers, Caleb. I want to come back because I know you've researched and talked to your board about the 4-day school week.
Yeah.
We replaced Joel Pedersen down at Cardinal, who did that. Got some insights. So after Brent presents, I want to bring that up and ask you some questions about that as
Perfect.
well.
Perfect.
Mr. Hoesing.
Yes, sir.
Excited to hear from you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. One of the things that I appreciate Caleb's presentation. I think he touched on really everything that I'll probably go over. Before coming to Lewis Central, which is a medium-sized school, about 3,100 students or so, I was at Missouri Valley, so a rural school north of a metro area, about 30 minutes, population size about 750. So kind of both sides of it. I know how hard it is to recruit people to a rural community, how hard it is to try to get people to stay. I know the pains of we kind of called ourselves like almost like a post-secondary school for teachers, because we would get them right out of college, we would coach them up for 2 or 3 years, and then they would go off and get another job closer to where they really wanted to be. And so trying to, like Caleb said, trying to figure out a way to keep those staff members with us, and that's working with the community. I was on a housing community or housing planning facility or committee for the city of Missouri Valley to try to do more in that area to try to ensure that we had housing available for our young people who wanted to move to the area. Coming down to a more metro area school in Lewis Central, which is located in the south, we're basically South Council Bluffs. We have more opportunity for housing. We have more opportunity for a metro area, but it's still a challenge. Everybody's still getting the same 5, 6 applicants for a teaching position. It's not necessarily like it wasn't. It's not like we get 30 and 40 like Caleb was talking about, and the rural towns are getting 6 or 7. We're still getting 6 or 7. I just had an assistant principal position opening that maybe 5 years ago, and Trent could probably attest to this, would probably have gotten us anywhere from 20 to 30 to plus applicants at a minimum, and we had a total of 9 for an assistant elementary principal position. I was shocked, and we consider ourselves a pretty sought after district. We're in a metro area. Our pay is high comparatively, but still, it's hard to recruit and retain people. So we do focus quite a bit of our attention on retainment. We're trying to figure out how we're constantly comparing ourselves not only to the other metro school in Council Bluffs, but other schools in the Hawkeye 10 conference, other schools in the area, to try to make sure that the benefit packages we have and the pay packages we have are very similar. And that doesn't just come for our teachers, it comes for all of our support staff as well. I'll say one of the biggest issues we have right now that everybody's having is trying to find enough paras, trying to find enough bus drivers, trying to find enough custodians, trying to find enough maintenance people. We actually haven't hired a bus driver at Lewis Central in 3 years. I take it back. We just did last week for the first time in 3 years. But before that, I mean, literally 3 years without hiring a bus driver. Like that is insane. So what do we do? Because every year we have, our just like everybody else, our bus drivers are an aging force. And every year we're looking at 2 to 3 bus drivers that will probably retire. Probably should retire, to be honest. Once they get in their 80s and they're driving a bus, that gets a little sketchy. So trying to figure out how can we recruit those types of employees as well. And a lot of it has to do with, they'll come with pay and benefits, but it's also, how do you get the word out to them? One of the things that I did differently this year is there's been this huge push to put, all of our application materials online. But that doesn't help when we have, 65-year-old people who are retiring and coming off of a truck driving career, coming off of a farming career. And they're like, I'd like to drive a bus. And they pop in and we're like, you bet, let's sit you down at a computer. And now you're going to go through and fill out this online application. And we originally required them to answer 3 essay questions. And I finally looked at our HR this year. And I'm like, what are you serious? Like 3 essay questions for a bus driver? Like, I just want to know, like, can you drive? Like, are you safe? And that's about it. Like, that's it. That's all I know. Like, multiple choice, yes, no questions. And so even thinking about how do we revamp those processes to not exclude people who are, could potentially want to come work for you. Coming to a new district, that was kind of hard because they're like, well, this is the way we do it. And I'm like, that doesn't make it right. So trying to figure out how we can do that better. Caleb said one of the things that, and I was talking to him yesterday, my dad, who's been a superintendent for 30 years in Nebraska, told me, he said, I just can't believe, and he's retiring this year for the second time and hopefully the final time. Like, he's gotten the point where I'm just like, Dad, you got to be done. And, but he said, one of the reasons of getting out of here is because I can't believe the things we have to do now in order to, make teachers and staff members happy. It used to be when you applied, we had a salary schedule, you were placed in the salary schedule, and that's it. But now kids are coming out of college and they're like, I'm going to need 50, like, it's crazy. I even think back when I got my first job and I'm like, where do I go? Okay, 28,000. Perfect. Sounds good. Just happy to get a job. But now they're like, I need 50 and it'd be great if I had like 5 personal days. It's just nuts. And so, but like Caleb said, I kind of took that and I like to reframe it a little bit and say, I can't believe the things we get to do now. So we do get to kind of negotiate with people a little bit, especially for some of our hard sought after positions. So when we talk math, we talk science, we talk special education, preschool, early childhood, we're able to kind of throw out some opportunities to provide some post-secondary opportunities, either whether through credits, or we can provide additional pay. We can, a lot of times what I like to do is I like to use our activities, and I'd like to say, hey, here's the deal. We do have a salary schedule still, so I'm kind of capped on what I can get you here. But what if you have a club? What if you have, if it were me, we'd have, 10 assistants at every sport, just because I really don't care. Like, I'm going to try to do what I can within what I'm allowed to be able to make sure that money's not necessarily a factor. We all know that money is always a factor because we only get X amount of dollars. But yeah, anything, even trying to be creative, bonuses, retention bonuses, recruitment. We talk timelines a lot. I tell my staff, like, we like to put out and be like, we're going to accept applications for a month. And I tell them no more. Like, if you get a good applicant in, you're going to hire them tomorrow. Like, we're not waiting on that. And so that's one of the things we take a look at. We try to make sure I'm constantly comparing schools in our area to make sure we're competitive. And then trying to be consistent, because one of the things that drives people crazy is when you have those inconsistencies. So taking a look at your current practices and trying to figure out, like, how are things consistent? Example I can give is coming into the district that I have now is I had a group of secretaries that were grandfathered into some of these old practices. So they got vacation days, they got higher pay. They were, instead of getting paid on an hourly schedule, they're more of a salary. So they're grandfathered into these things. Well, I found out through conversations that a lot of my other administrative staff were upset about it. And so, because they said, how come we don't get the same treatment? Well, in reality, they should. And so I went out and started switching all that up and trying to make sure that we're consistent across the board. So trying to figure out too, like, how do you make those hard decisions in order to make things better for the group? Because at the end of the day, I might have lost one or two who are grandfathered in. I didn't, they're going to stay, but it was better than having a bunch of people who were kind of, sitting here saying this is not fair, and being kind of discontent with their current working situation. I do have a presentation that I'm going to share. I'm going to go a little bit different. I'm going to go more on that retention side of it right now, because Caleb did a great job of kind of sharing how to recruit. So I'm just going to pull this up right here. If I can find it. Here it is. So what I do every year for recruit or for retention, and I found this to be very helpful, and this is just maybe something that you guys can look at, look to maybe implement if you're not already doing it, is I make sure that every year I have an opportunity to sit down with our staff, and I sit down with each group individually. So I'll sit down with our paraeducators, our bus drivers, our nutrition staff, our teachers, and I'll talk with them specifically about the kind of the state. I call it the state of the district presentation. And so I'll start and talk about, I always start with this funding situation. I talk about pools of money. I talk about how it's different, because people really don't have that understanding. And so what I like to say all the time is, like, if you don't tell your story, somebody else will. And so people will look at, why are we're only getting a 50 cent or a dollar raise, but they're building an addition onto the school, or we're only getting a 50 cent or dollar raise, but we're replacing the football turf. Like, how are they able to, what's more important here? And the reality is, because they just don't understand the school financing portion of it. They don't understand what we're allowed to spend money on. In fact, I came in this year, and we were losing so many paraeducators because we were about $3 per hour less than Council Bluffs. But we also had about a $450,000 surplus in our special education balance. Like, we were giving money back every year. And I said, this is asinine, guys. Like, we're going to give them. So before the school year even started, I gave all paraeducators a $2 an hour raise. Of course, the rest of our staff was like, what the heck? How come they get a $2 an hour raise and we don't? Well, the reality is Lewis Central used to have about a $5 million unspent balance, and about 2 years ago, it dropped all the way down to $160,000. And so we're in the process of building that back up. But that took a lot of conversations to make sure people understand, like, it's not about that I don't want to give you money. It's about, I don't have money in that area. Right now I have a Casey's gift card that's unlimited, and you work at Hy-Vee, so I can't do anything with it. So I go through, I talk to them about the different pools of money. I talk to them about, our general fund expenditures and how the state has impacted it, how we impact it. I talk about budget. I talk about, this is the difference in new money. I don't have anything to hide. Like, this is what we're expecting for an increase for this year. But then this is how we spend it. This is what we're doing for insurance coverages. Like, for instance, one of the things we're doing this year is we're going to change again. We're going to hit the paraeducators again, and we're going to make sure that they have health insurance. They don't currently have health insurance. They work 6.75 hours to stay below that threshold. So we're going to ramp them up to 8 hours, which is going to help our teachers, because the paras will be able to do the pickup and drop off duties. So the teachers can spend more time in their classroom. And it's, it'll hit our special education a little bit, but we should be running a deficit. But I think I think there's only 7% of schools in the state that don't run a deficit. And we're one of them. So yeah, just kind of going through, we just want to make sure that they understand, like, this is the situation. I want them to understand that we do have a goal at the end of the day to get back to about $4.5 million in our unspent balance. Right now we're projecting to be about 1.5 with this, which is a significant increase from 2 years ago, but we still got to be pretty fiscally conservative, and that's because we're looking at the long haul. I talk about total package. Everybody wants to talk about dollars per hour. That's great, but let's talk about the total package, and so they understand how much they mean to the district and how much we're expending in order to keep them with the district. and then we talk about our goals. So, and then, like I said, if there is any changes in insurance, we talk about that. We talk about the future, we're state dependent. So that's just kind of maybe something different that I do for retention. And it takes a lot of time. Like this year alone, over the next 2 weeks, I have 8 meetings set up. So every day after school, I'm meeting with a group. I talk for about 15 minutes and I give them a half hour to 45 minutes to be able to ask me questions. And it just helps leave with, helps them have a better understanding. And from what I understand is people really look forward to it. It's a volunteer thing. You don't have to come and watch me speak. We will pay you if you do. But that's just a different strategy. But otherwise, I echo everything Caleb said. Big school, small school, we still have challenges. Still can't find the same people right anymore. Recruitment is bigger than ever. Like I agree with Caleb when I say you gotta network like crazy. You got to be able to understand and know people. But it also makes it hard because you might have a neighboring district superintendent who is a good friend of yours, is becoming a good friend of yours, or good colleague, and your principal might come and say, "Hey, there's a special ed teacher in a neighboring district, and one of our teachers is cousins with them, so I'm going to have them reach out and recruit them over, and I think they're interested." And I'm sitting there saying, "Oh no, I got to call Darren and be like, hey, sorry, I'm stealing your special education teacher." Like that's so it's like I said, but it's nuts. It's everywhere. So so just try to make sure that I guess that's probably the message I would say is, even though you have to recruit and you have to do what's best for your kids first in your community, try to recognize that you want to do it in a way that is not going to burn bridges with the
Right.
neighboring districts around you, because you may need something down the line.
Yep.
So
yeah, it's one of those things where like we're in the most competitive non-competition that I've ever lived in. Like
yeah,
everything's competitive right now, but it's not like anybody's going to win at the end.
right. And that's the thing, is you say they're like, "Oh, it's best I have to do what's best for my kids," and absolutely you do. But at the end of the day, you're kind of hurting somebody else's kids,
Right.
So it's just kind of a, it's a dog eat
Mhm.
dog world, but it stinks that it has to be that way.
Yep.
Well,
So-
and that's going to be the challenge, and throw voucher schools into this, parochials as well with the recent legislation. That's there's only so many teachers right now that want to stay in the profession, let alone get into the profession. And I appreciate Brent, you talking about bus drivers. I saw a statistic the other day. I think the average bus driver in Iowa is 72 or 74 years old, and a lot of question around that. But I also heard you say part of it is recruiting and getting them there. Good strategies. That the other part is keeping them.
Well, and here's the thing too, is anymore, I used to not want to be involved in politics whatsoever, but now I have to be more than ever. And I think as educators, we have to be more than ever. We have to know, because it does impact our ability to staff our kids. And so even things that relate to transportation, keep an eye on it, because when they started requiring our bus drivers to take an 18-hour online class,
Yep.
that was a game changer. We no longer can have, Bob, who's farmed for forever and driven trucks his entire life, come in and help drive a bus because he has a CDL. Now he has to go through an 18-hour online class, and the minute I say online, he's out. Bob's done. And so trying to think about, how you can legislate and try to figure out how we can get some of these things changed to make it easier for us.
Tell that story. So you put a person in a scenario in front of that legislator that is just looking at paper.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if what I'm going to share is valuable or not. I hope so, but we've had to get creative as well as a search team. And I want to just mention a few things that I think are a little bit innovative, and they're not all my ideas. But on this topic, I just wanted to offer a little bit. One thing I also think about in the hiring side is, does your process itself, because people talk and our state and other states are small, what does your process look like? And I say that because I've seen some processes that cause anxiety and concern about not only the candidates, but everybody else around them in the district, and others that really create excitement and energy. And I think in education, with all the challenges that we have, hopefully, whether it's hiring a superintendent or a bus driver or a teacher, we can create that positive energy around a hire. I also think we have to be careful as a state, because I've heard from folks that are from out of state about some of the challenges to come to Iowa around licensure mostly. And so you certainly don't want to not tell them the truth about coming to Iowa, but you want to be very honest about some of the challenges and that they may face and help them get over those challenges if at all possible. Now, recruiting, I just wanted to offer, this is one of the exact slides I share with school boards, but I got to give a few nuggets away here today. We have had some good traction hiring through a couple unique places. One of them is Handshake, which is a place most of our universities post their jobs and volunteer opportunities, not always to their current students, but also their alumni. So if you haven't used Handshake, it is free to set up an account. And it is something that I think more and more schools will want to consider posting their jobs. We are also trying to diversify our pools in a couple of unique organizations. One is the National Alliance of Black School Educators that we post jobs to often, and another one is the Hispanic School Leaders Association. I hope I got that right. But those are two unique ones that we've recently posted to as well. We also get some traction, more and more educators, not just Twitter and Facebook. Seems like LinkedIn is becoming more and more popular, so we try to post there. And I can't forget with the blue arrow on the bottom here, you know, a lot of your best candidates, and we all know this, are the ones not looking. So regardless of the spots, it's going to require something none of us have enough of, and that's time and a little of attention. But they'll be humbled by the call. So nothing worth a good old phone call or an email to get a great candidate. Now, I noticed, not to pick on Johnston here, but I noticed on Teach Iowa, and Teach Iowa doesn't let you do a lot to spruce up your postings. And so, I just think schools, and I know Caleb, and Brent, I've seen some of yours, and I'm doing a search for you, so I hope ours looks good. But, I do think if you can help your posting pop out, that will catch people's attention here too. So, I just put this on here. We're competing against some of the larger districts. We're competing against outside of education that maybe somebody's even thinking about now. And so if you can make a job ad, put the vital information in here on one page and highlight your district. I love Houston here had an infographic about, their school in a nutshell. Detroit had I just pulled this off the website, a flashy flyer, and then it followed up, come be part of the team. And so I think if you can get some positive culture information out there, something we have to think about more than we used to. Once you get somebody hired, I think that's another pivotal time to create excitement around that hire and perhaps make somebody else excited about joining the team. So I noticed not one of our hires, but Dallas Center Grimes hired Travis there and put out a nice positive note. We hired Josh Porter at Fort Dodge, and note he put his family in the picture that he wanted to share with the district logo. So I think those little things to, again, create energy and excitement around that next chapter for a teacher, leader, bus driver is important. And I won't bore you with any of our videos, but we actually create a video for a lot of our new hires. And not everybody sings like Brent, but we do have a lot of good ones. And I'll just play just a snapshot of this one.
Hello, Central City and Northland Community Schools. My name is Lisa Breitfelder, and I'm honored to be named your next superintendent of school. I grew up in a small community in Illinois.
I'm going to stop that there, but you get the idea, a welcome, an introductory thing, not just about that person, but also their family and personal and professional information. So people that weren't on the interview team get to know that person personally and create some excitement around that new hire. So anybody can do that. And I think that's something worth sharing. Now, this is credit to Jared Smith, who offers a lot of noble and innovative ideas, but he had, I believe, a top 8 innovative hiring strategies when I was kind of looking into today. And I won't bore you with this. Perhaps, Amanda, we can put some of these in our recall, but his tips there: post early, market openings, actively market, referral bonuses to your own staff. I've seen more and more schools do, recruit alumni and be intentional about that. Transparency in the hiring process, updates on the hiring processes, social media and text message to recruit. And as Brent, you both mentioned, create a pitch, tell your story. So credit to Jared on that, but some good ideas worth sharing that we'll also share. So last but not least, I got to leave the viewers with this. A couple years ago, and maybe I think you responded to me on this, Caleb, actually, I threw out on social media nationally. I said, what is the most innovative recruiting strategies that a district's done to attract teachers? And this was before the pandemic, before our challenges. And I created this infographic to share with schools. Once in a while I put it out, but I just want to bring some, and these aren't necessarily Iowa. These were just things that people responded to me on social media, but some things to think about from that post. One was something I never thought about, but paying for PD. And I'll tell you a quick story. I had a colleague who's serving as an interim superintendent now, and this small district close to the metro did not have I believe it was a world language teacher for the last 3 years. Didn't have one. Couldn't meet the requirements, tried to fill in, couldn't. He reached out to another university for I believe one of the few world language teachers, and I think it was French. And they had one graduating that he reached out to personally. And what she wanted to come to that school, because she had an offer already, was to have her professional dues paid and be able to go to a national conference to stay current. And so he did an agreement with her, which is totally legal with Chapter 20 now, that she could go to a national language conference every other year and he'd pay for her dues annually. But she had to commit to 4 years. And she took the job over the other district. True story. So that creative. Another one I've seen, you want your new staff to go to maybe school events outside of school. What about giving them free activity pass and or their family? Something easy. Relocation allowance, we're seeing more and more. Housing is such a big deal when we're doing searches right now. People nervous, you can give them an incentive, but if there's no housing, what do you do? So the more that you can ease people's mind about housing, I even know a couple districts that are looking to build houses for their employees. I think it's something we gotta think about. Another one is extra sick days. Any good educator is probably not using all their sick days anyway. And if they're new to your district, they don't get FMLA for their first 12 months of employment. So one soft thing you can do is perhaps offer some extra sick day. And then last but not least, everybody has fairs, carnivals, hot dog, brat days, you name it. In small town Iowa, we have engage them in the community. What can you do to engage them and get them connected? Because the more someone's family is connected, the less likely they will leave for another job. It's not always about the job. It's partly about their family's contentment as well. So hopefully some ideas worth sharing as we think about this important topic, and just wanted to share that as we've had to get unique about recruiting and diversifying in our pools as well. Well, at that, we're probably at our time, so I'm gonna pause for there before we get in our discussion. We will look forward to our May Friday focus as well. And if you're able to stay on, we'll chat a little bit. But Caleb, on behalf of our team and Brent, I really want to say thank you guys for sharing the insights, strategies, ideas today. We got a lot of kids and families and society in general counting on great educators. And so these ideas and others are what it's going to take to keep the profession noble and get folks in the line of work. So thank you for sharing the ideas today, and have a great weekend.